Now more than ever, Lowe's knows you don't just want a low price, you want the lowest price. And with our lowest price guarantee, you can count on us for competitive prices on all your home improvement projects. If you find a qualifying lower price somewhere else on the same item, we'll match it. Lowe's, we help, you save. Price match applies to same item. Current price at qualifying retailers. Exclusions and terms apply. Learn how we'll match price at lowes.com/lowest price guarantee.
Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile. With the price of just about everything going up, we thought we'd bring our prices down. So to help us, we brought in a reverse auctioneer, which is apparently a thing.
Mint Mobile Unlimited Premium Wireless. How to get 30, 30, how to get 30, how to get 20, 20, 20, how to get 20, 20, how to get 15, 15, 15, 15, just $15 a month? Sold! Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month plan, equivalent to $15 per month required. New customer offer for first 3 months only. Speed slow after 35 gigabytes if network's busy. Taxes and fees extra. See mintmobile.com.
You can support this podcast at patreon.com/partnersincrimemedia.
I'm Rebecca Lavoie, and this is Crime Writers On. Crime Writers On is the original true crime review podcast that digs into true crime, pop culture, other podcasts. And on this episode, former college athletes say they were abused by the team doctor, and their coaches and the university looked the other way. We'll talk about the HBO original documentary, Surviving Ohio State. Joining me to get that done and more is true crime author, TV journalist, and host of These Are Their Stories podcast, my husband and love of my life, Kevin Flynn. Hi, Kevin.
Hello, Rebecca.
And happy birthday, Kevin.
Oh, thank you very much.
We didn't wish you a happy birthday on the show last week, which I was remiss in not doing.
Oh, that's okay. Now, by the time people listen to this, it's way past my birthday.
You can still send gifts, though. He'll still accept them.
Yeah, I'll take them. Sure.
Also with us is private investigator, certified pet detective, resident cat lady, and author of The Final Curtain, Laura Bricker. Hi, Laura.
Hey, Rebecca.
And finally, our captain of all things cynical, author of the City Trilogy, host of Rip Current, More Like Ancient Phalians, Strange Arrivals, and our Patreon Deep Dive Book Club podcast, Toby Ball. Hi, Toby.
Hey, Rebecca.
So, Kevin?
Yes.
What's coming up on Thursday's show? This is obviously Monday's program.
Yeah, on Thursday, we're going to talk about the latest season of CBC's Uncovered. You know, it's like the 36th season.
Yes.
I mean, they don't do one a year, obviously, here, but this one is called Calls from a Killer.
It's like the House Hunters of podcast series.
You mean Uncovers like House Hunters? Okay.
Well, there's like 150 seasons of House Hunters, and it hasn't been 150 years. They just do these, like, they call them seasons, I guess. Yeah. But I know that CBC, and an interesting thing they do is they will put something in the Uncover feed and spin it out on its own podcast feed. Mm-hmm. And we've started doing that at NHPR because they did it.
Stealing from the best.
Well, they said it worked, and the Apple people were like, yeah, it really works for them. You should try it. So that's why we do that way.
All right, yes.
Isn't that interesting?
Very interesting.
Super interesting.
I have super interesting, very quick Exeter news for the people that follow Quaint AF Exeter.
Sure,
right.
Hit us.
On the day that this podcast drops on Monday, it will be the finale of the show Yes Chef that's on NBC.
Yeah.
And Exeter's own chef, Lee Frank, has made it to the finale. He's like the top 3. So out of I think they started with like 12 or 14. So he was like the sleeper cell. Like he was like there the whole time in the beginning, kind of under the radar. And I'm like, he made it another week. He made it another week.
Wow.
And now he has made it to the end.
Now, that's not what a sleeper cell is, but that's okay. Wait, which restaurant is he from?
He's at Otis, where Rebecca's mother and her boyfriend went one time when they wanted somewhere to go when Elon Green came to town. And I was like, I'll get you in this restaurant. And they were very excited.
Now, this was recorded in the past, right? This isn't like live.
No.
He's not there right now, right? And so he's been sworn to secrecy.
He's been sworn to secrecy. And I interviewed him before the first show came out. And I was like, so how long did it take to tape all this? And he's like, I can't tell you that. So I think they tape it over like maybe a week or 2 or something.
Yeah, but if he says like, it took me 3 days, you know, then he's hinting that he got booted. But I think
there have been some other signs that I've taken to think, okay, he probably won the cash prize because he has also a burger joint that he started. And he wanted to like franchise. So he was going to be opening the 3rd location in Exeter. It was stalled. As soon as the show came out, mysteriously the sign went up. Coming soon. on the burger place in Exeter. So if he won,
Nice.
I'm pulling for him, and it's going to be exciting. So tune in on Monday night at 10 o'clock.
Very exciting.
All right. Super, super.
So just briefly, one of Henry's girlfriends was just the runner-up on the season of Survivor that just ended.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Wow.
She formed this alliance with this dude, and I guess they really trounced on everybody else. But when he was telling me about her name's Eva, and he had met her a few times, I guess, because she's dating his friend Paul.
Yes, it's that Eva.
Yeah.
America.
It's that
yes.
one.
Yep.
He's like, everybody I've ever met in my life who I think would maybe win Survivor, it would be this girl. He's like, she is so competitive. She was super gung-ho about everything.
They're playing board games, and she just took it way too
Throw in the
seriously.
table. No,
Yep.
not
Right,
really. Anyway, she came in second. So I think she won $500,000 or something like that.
Oh, we got all these reality TV winners around us.
I know. We need to go on some reality TV. We could crush it.
I don't think so.
All
Can
right.
you imagine us on The Amazing Race?
Yes.
We bicker about what the script is. Can you imagine, no, Bangkok is that way.
Well, also, I have a tremendous amount of travel anxiety.
No,
the
that's
only
true.
thing I have anxiety about is getting to the airport early and missing my
and
plane.
I love traveling by myself because I end up having zero
I know.
travel anxiety. I'm yeah, now I'm going to go to the gate.
Yeah, yeah. Even when we are Group A, I have to be at the gate a few minutes before they start boarding because I'm I got to be on that plane first because I'm Group A, man. It's the only thing in my life I'm like that about. It's really weird. That and my car, the two things I'm anxious about. All right, Kevin, which I guess is also kind of travel anxiety if you think about it.
I'm not going to mention that when you get into that Southwest A boarding group and you think you're ready to go on and how much you resent those World War II veterans that get to go on before you.
No, that's JetBlue.
That's JetBlue.
JetBlue
they always welcome.
I get it, but
Come on
JetBlue
now.
has the longest pre-boarding process because they have the active duty military. They have the people who need assistance. Then they have
Young
Mosaic.
children. Oh, yes.
They have the freaking Mosaic people, and everybody is a Mosaic person.
We got to board. That's what we got to board. We went to Puerto Rico because Lance whipped out his retired veteran military
There
ID.
you go.
Nice.
And we
There you
cut in
go.
front of people. And I was like, sweet.
Nice.
And that's why I
Another
hate
way
Lance.
to do it is just to get a first class ticket, which I
Yeah.
occasionally do when it's affordable because I got to be on that plane first. And I got to be able to use the bathroom whenever I want. A lot of anxiety there. Okay. Should we talk about the thing we're talking about?
Yeah, you just made it seem slightly less weird with all of that discussion about
Going to the bathroom?
No, about how you need to be one of the first on the airplane.
I do.
Otherwise, what? Someone's going to take your seat?
I don't know. I don't know what the anxiety is about. Anyway.
Let it go.
At least,
Let it go,
at least I'm
Elsa.
aware.
Let it go, Elsa.
Okay. Should we talk about the thing we're talking about?
Let's do
it's
it.
It's kind of grim, but let's get it started. Leading off.
That line, it was kind of backed up. And some of the upperclassmen were commenting, hey, this is going to take you a while.
They were saying, oh, Doc's going to like you.
And they just kind of chuckled and laughed a little bit, and I had no idea what they meant.
In the 1980s and 90s, athletes on the Ohio State wrestling team said Dr. Richard Strauss fondled them during physical exams and insinuated himself into their showers. His behavior seemed common knowledge among players and coaches, and the few complaints that were made were brushed aside by the school.
Rumor and innuendo, what else could it possibly be? Yes, it's rumor and innuendo when you have failed to document anything effectively.
Decades later, former athletes from different sports came forward with allegations of Strauss's abuse. University officials claim to take the scandal seriously, but have tried to limit their liability. And victims remain frustrated that a powerful congressman who had been an assistant coach now says he was unaware the team doctor was a predator.
But there is no truth to the fact that I knew of any abuse, or I've talked to other coaches, they didn't know of any abuse. That's just not accurate to say those things, that we knew of it and didn't report it. It's just not true.
The HBO documentary Surviving Ohio State looks at the case of Dr. Richard Strauss and how he was able to prey on students with impunity for years. It shows the ways the Ohio State University brushed aside concerns then and how it downplays the impact today. It also focuses on efforts to get answers from firebrand politician Jim Jordan about what he really knew. Spoiler alert, we're going to be talking about plot points from Surviving Ohio State. So if you want to remain spoiler-free, go to the estimated time code in our show notes for our thumbs up or thumbs down reviews. So, Laura, this is an institution that is beloved by members of your family, right?
Yeah. So my dad's side of the family is from Ohio. Many people have gone to Ohio State, and my grandfather was on the board of trustees for Ohio State, and Bricker Hall was named after him until it was renamed because of his racist history with the school and his blocking of Black and white students being in the same classes together. So
that's a conversation for a different episode. I
yeah,
think.
well,
Wow.
I'm just saying. So yeah,
On the next Crime Writers on After show.
Yeah, so that just happened a few years ago that they renamed the hall. But like many members of my family, I see they're always going to the football games. Everybody's a Buckeye. They're like, yay, Buckeyes. So it's been something I've heard about since I was a little kid, Ohio State. And when I was looking at colleges, well, you should go to Ohio State. I'm like, I don't want to go to Ohio State.
Yeah. They do have the best marching band in college, marching bands. So, Toby, there's something that happened when some of these players started coming forward. On social media, there were some really gross troll-type people who said they must be lying because they are big, strong men, and how could they possibly have been sexually abused by this guy? What do you think about that?
Well, I mean, I think one of the interesting things about this show is that it is sort of a response to like a lot of things that people say generally towards women about sexual abuse, about sort of fighting back or not understanding the power imbalances that go into play besides just like physical size, because these guys are very tough guys. They're Division I wrestlers is who they mostly focus on in this. And this guy Strauss is a doctor who they keep describing as not a very big guy. So there's no question that if it came down to it, they could just pound that guy into dust. But that never happened, right? Across dozens and hundreds of incidents. And it's not just about like who can beat up who or who can physically overpower who. There's like all these other power things that are going on, including the fact that these guys can have their scholarships taken away and then they won't be able to go to school anymore. They don't want to piss off their coaches who hold a tremendous amount of power, including scholarships, but other opportunities as well. So I just, if it does nothing else, people should be watching this and sort of reevaluating the assumptions that they might make about victims of sexual assault, because it's clearly not just a physical force thing, because otherwise these guys would not be victimized in that way. But there's obviously a lot more going on.
Yeah, I think that the drift between my mind and Toby's mind continues to, we keep moving closer and closer together each week.
Sorry about that, man.
Toby's reading thing. I'm like, it's like, that's like precisely my note. And I think maybe I'm going to start putting my stuff in the Google Documents second, because I'm starting to get suspicious. But you're right, Toby. I think like this does, the fact that they were all strong men disproves the belief that it's like only young girls or young boys that can be targeted. Because like you said, the thing about, I would have punched him out, and some of them use that language too that they should have, or other people said that. But if that were sort of the option that the mind went to in those moments, somebody would have punched him out at one time. But it doesn't happen because that isn't the realistic way one reacts when they are either A, super confused about what is happening to them. Because it's like, well, is this a doctor? Is this supposed to be normal? I don't know. I've never been to a sports medicine guy before, and this is like really important. But it's also, they talk about fight or flight, but there's also freeze, right? And that's what happened to a lot of them. I'm sure at some point we'll talk about the referee and his experience, but also sort of the same thing happened to him. There's sort of disbelief, there's confusion, and then sometimes you need to protect yourself in one way or another. But it happens to more than just elite gymnasts who are young women, and it happens to more than just Boy Scouts and altar boys who are also somewhat unable to protect themselves against big, strong men. But even other big, strong men can be victimized, and that is, you're right, sort of one of the interesting takeaways that people should have from this case.
I think the case of Larry Nassar and the gymnasts was an interesting one. There were obviously hundreds and hundreds of victims, and a lot of them gave victim impact statements, and I'm sure many more are out there that didn't come forward. But some of his victims were very famous. So it's not just being big that doesn't protect you or being strong. It's also if you have power. Like, who's going to say Simone Biles and Aly Raisman don't have power in the gymnastics world? They do. But, sort of like the NCAA, collegiate sports system, whatever power you think you have is actually overshadowed by the power of the institution that protects itself. And it's USA Gymnastics in the Larry Nassar case. And he was in Michigan, right, too, or something?
Yeah.
And, if you're Simone Biles or Allie Raisman or any of these gymnasts, like, you need USA Gymnastics in order to be able to go to the Olympics. Like, it's very much, and the NCAA is very similar. Like, you piss off the NCAA, they have way more power than you do. And also, like you said, Kevin, some people knew it was wrong right away. And some people were like, I guess this is what going to the doctor looks like when I wrestle or when I do gymnastics. And it's always like this pelvic floor bullshit or whatever.
I'm just being thorough, is what he said.
Yeah.
Like, well, yeah, okay.
The one guy, Rebecca, that was kind of well known, he became like the mixed martial arts guy afterward.
Oh, yeah.
He was talking at one point about feeling like powerless because it's like, yeah, this is wrong. But if we get failed on our physicals, we lose our scholarships.
Mm-hmm.
And so they're, like, we're just going to pretend this isn't happening because we don't feel like we have an option.
Yeah. But Laura, there were complaints. This is what always blows my mind.
Yeah.
And it always happens. It always happened at St. Paul's School. It happens literally everywhere.
Right.
That people complain and nothing fucking happens. And we're not talking about like some podunk place that doesn't know how to handle problems, right? This is like one of the biggest state universities in the country, super well known, and you would think they would fucking know how to handle a problem. Like they had a professor that was hitting on students, or if they had, and you bet if it was a woman, she probably would have been fuck out of there, right? But what do you think of that, Laura? This idea that we always hear this, people complain, there's a record of complaints. We hear from that administrator dude who literally did all this documentation and then denied having heard anything about it. What are your thoughts about that?
Yeah, we keep hearing this over and over in all sorts of institutional abuse stories, right back to the church or the Scouts or any sort of organization that is like protecting their own, like you said. And in this case, they had been aware of complaints about this guy going back to, I think it was like 1979. And they logged 177 male students saying they had been abused by him. I think when they did their own study, they said there was over 2,800 instances of alleged sexual misconduct by Strauss. And then wait for it, he gets to retire and keep his fucking emeritus status so that he doesn't lose his retirement. Are you even kidding me? That was one of those details that made me so angry when I heard it, because it's like, okay, clearly there's a pattern here. This is not a one-off. This is something that has been going on for decades, men and women. And I think unique because we've heard of young men in like the Scouts, but this is like men in college, like young men in college that to me are really a victim that we haven't heard a lot about until this story. But to hear that and then hear that he's still given his emeritus status. I mean, I think they eventually took it away from him as these complaints went on. But like that was just like a big FU to everybody that came forward. Like, yeah, he's gone, but he's still going to get his retirement.
Yeah. So, Toby, he was also doling out steroids to the student wrestlers. What do you think about that? And he was lying to them about it.
Yeah, that's not great either. Yeah, I guess, they kind of make the case in the show that he was sort of a pioneer, and they give you screenshots of these different papers that he wrote about steroids. And then they talk about how there was a locked, cabinet in his examination room or whatever that had the steroids. And they talk to a guy who says that he was given shots that were supposedly B12, but he'd had that before and said this was something completely different. It made me feel awesome. And, I went out there and kicked ass and I recovered quickly and, I was able to kick some more ass.
I got a lot of acne, but I was really strong.
Yeah, I was kind of angry all of a sudden and shit too.
Yeah, these are kind of like the heyday or the beginning of the heyday of steroids before they were as heavily tested, obviously, as they are now. And, I've heard from people who played Division I sports that they're the people who made the decision to take steroids, often in an attempt to get to like the NFL or something. But it makes a difference. That's the difference between you being like an average college football player and a person who might be making hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars at the next level.
But you don't need that kind of money to join us on Patreon, Toby Ball.
You don't?
Well, hopefully not. I would hope that most of our Patreon people aren't taking steroids.
I don't take steroids. You don't take steroids. But if you want to, I mean, I'm not going to judge.
Kevin.
Some people just want to be what?
You just successfully transitioned into the business section from like the darkest thing. I'm so happy for you. I'm so impressed with you. Congratulations.
I told you, Toby and I, our minds are starting to meld. Like,
it's a little weird.
Yeah, very Vulcan-esque. Yeah, if you join us at patreon.com/partners in crime media, for a small monthly fee, you can support this podcast. Among the things that you can get at the leading off level is not only the satisfaction of knowing that we can continue to make this podcast through the summer and beyond, but you'll get the Crime Writers on After show. Now, on Thursday's show, we're going to talk about the CBC podcast, Calls with a Killer, as we said. And in the after show, we're going to talk a little bit about our own calls with killers. And Laura Bricker, I know that, I don't know if they're phone calls or not, but you definitely have communications with killers.
Same.
You had in your past life, probably
in my
your
current life. But I can't talk
well,
about the current life, but yeah.
All right. We'll talk about that on the after show. Other things that you can get at the leading off level include Toby Ball's Deep Dive Book Club podcast. We have returning the Married with Podcast relationship advice podcast. Got a really interesting topic to start with, Rebecca. We have a listener who's a trans man who is stopping transition in order to have a baby, but this might have a weird kind of effect on their relationship with their partner. So it's super complicated, but really interesting.
We are super unqualified to answer that question, but we'll try, damn it.
We'll try very
I
much.
thought you were going to say the one about the vacation situation and the parents who were like, you didn't see that one? It's really good. We have to do that.
We've got all sorts of great stuff. And it's because I thought you would have time to start doing the Married with podcast because there's no more Karen Reed case, but I am so wrong.
First of all, there is still a Karen Reed story, just because the trial's over. But no, I've been making a bunch of extra episodes, and I've been making them available at no cost. There's a few episodes available in the Readathon that are free. My conversations with Maggie Freeling and with Janet Varney and with Katie from Date with Dateline and one other special guest that technically, as of today, you'll know if I interviewed him or not, but I haven't done it yet, and I don't want to promise it.
No.
So, I'm taping that one on Friday.
If you join us at the Bricker scale level, there's an additional exclusive podcast, and it's Laura Bricker's Leave It to Bricker podcast. On the latest episode, Laura and Lance and her son all recount their trip to Cocaine Island.
Nice. She has one long fingernail now.
Yes, pretty much. I do. I just trimmed them off because I didn't want to look suspicious at college orientation.
Remember, if you help us out at the Let's Do What We Do level, you'll get all that plus episodes of Crime Writers on early and ad-free. And if you come in as a deep diver, all of that great exclusive content, including the ability to be there when Toby records his episodes of the deep dive, get to take part. You can be in the chat or jump on the screen if you want. The next recording is going to be on July 8th, where you could join. And Toby, what's the book you're talking about?
The book is A Death in Belmont by Sebastian Junger.
And that's a famous case, isn't it?
Yeah, well, it's about Boston Strangler and Boston Strangler adjacent killings. So I've listened to this twice, and I almost never do deep dives about books that I've already read or listened to. But this is a really good book, so I thought we'd discuss it.
Get all of that and more at patreon.com/partners in crime media. And also, don't forget to sign up for our free newsletter. Go to crimewriterson.com, and every Thursday, you'll get that newsletter. It includes all sorts of stuff like Crime Writers On Behind the Scenes, and you get to see the pet of the week and read more about the crime of the week and the post of the week and stuff that's new in the merch store. Everything you could possibly want about Crime Writers On. All of that at crimewriterson.com.
Kevin.
Yes.
Is that the end of our business section?
Thus ends the business section.
All right, let's fade that music out.
Is hot sleep keeping you awake? The Tempur-Pedic Breeze mattress pulls heat away from your body, so it feels up to 10 degrees cooler. Shop our July 4th sale to save $500 on Breeze mattresses at TempurPedic.com.
Hey, it's Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile. Now, I was looking for fun ways to tell you that Mint's offer of unlimited premium wireless for $15 a month is back. So I thought it would be fun if we made $15 bills. But it turns out That's very illegal. So there goes my big idea for the commercial. Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month plan equivalent to $15 per month required. New customer offer for first 3 months only. Speed slow after 35 gigabytes if network's busy. Taxes and fees extra. See mintmobile.com.
At 1-800-Flowers.com, we know that connections are at the heart of being human. Whether celebrating life's joys or comforting during tough times, 1-800-Flowers helps you express what words can't. For nearly 50 years, millions have trusted 1-800-Flowers to deliver thoughtful gifts that help create lasting bonds. Because it's more than just a gift. It's your way of showing you care. Visit 1-800-Flowers.com/Pandora and connect today. That's 1-800-Flowers.com/Pandora.
So, Kevin, you can't relate to this in any way except for a very small way, and I wanted to ask you about it.
Yes.
Okay, you're an umpire.
Yes.
And we hear from a referee here. And this isn't a referee-coach dynamic. This is a referee-college doctor dynamic, which seems like a little bit less of a power imbalance, maybe. So what do you think of this referee who told his story?
Well, I found it to be really interesting for a couple of reasons. And it's not because I'm a sports official. But what I found interesting about his story is that it is so different because the power dynamic is different. Not only that, but sort of, I don't want to say like the move that he puts on him, but just not only is so brazen to go after somebody, he doesn't even know if the referee's gay or not, right? He just decides he's
Shouldn't matter, by the way.
Shouldn't matter. No. But it's like, is he like shooting his shot because he thinks it's romantic? No.
He's just a predator.
It's just a predator, yeah. You go into a whole giant shower and you're going to stand next to the other guy there. Yeah, I mean, that's something. But as we said before, not only is the power dynamic different because he's not taking advantage of a space like the exam room and preying on students that he has a lot of power over. This is just a very peculiar incident and, not subtle at all, right?
No.
That's not part of his MO with the students. And then what happens later is he goes ahead and he tries to report it to the other people that he thinks might care about it.
As I'm walking out, at the very end of that walkway, Russ Alexson and Jim Jordan were both standing there. And I looked at both of them. I said, hey, Strauss is in there masturbating beside me in the shower. And both of them looked at me. Jim Jordan looked at me straight in my face and said, it's Strauss. You know what he does.
And that's just kind of the thing. It's like, well, it's Strauss doing what Strauss does. And that might be a response that was very common in that era and hopefully isn't anymore. But it's evidence that these people knew what the fuck was going on.
So a question for you as just a dude, Kevin.
Yeah.
You guys have a personal space rule? Like if you walk into a thing and there's like 10 empty urinals, will you not stand next to the one person who's using one?
If they're probably not. But can you imagine? How about this? When you go to a movie theater and you're the only person in the row and somebody else comes and still like the whole movie theater, they go and they'd sit right next to you.
I'm telling you, that happens to women all the time.
You'd be like, what? Right. But
it happened to me on the bus when I was the first one on and the second person got on and sat right next to me. I was like, what the fuck are you doing? Like,
that's by design.
Yeah.
Right. So, when you're taking a shower, you turn around and he's soaping up his genitals, right, staring at you. Do I have to explain that that's
uncomfortable? No, I'm just curious.
Yeah.
I don't know the rules of men's
I don't know what the rules are either, but I just know that's not one of them. I just, I don't want... You
hear about locker rooms all the time. I hear it's like this mysterious place where shit goes down. Like, I just didn't know what the general rules were.
Mysterious place where shit goes down?
No.
Locker room talk, you know what I mean?
There's snapping towels, and then there's that, right? And
snapping towels also doesn't seem cool to me.
But also, it's like, he seemed to like... Whenever the shower was on, he decided, I'm jumping in the shower too.
Yeah, how many showers a day was this guy taking?
Well, as many as all the other athletes were, right? I mean,
clean.
It's just, it's very clean.
Laura, not only was he taking lots of showers, but he had his lockers in other locker rooms for other sports.
Yeah, that was wild. It was like this guy was everywhere and he was able to just sort of use his position to be like, oh no, of course I went over here. And now I'm also with fencing or whatever the other sports were and everything. And it's one of those things where it's like almost like an open secret, but you're like, well, hey, maybe it's a perk of the job. Like he gets 2 cars, he gets 2 locker rooms. I don't know. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So Toby, let's transition and talk about Jim Jordan. There has always been, I've heard ever since Jim Jordan was elected that George Clooney is making a documentary that's going to expose some shit about Jim Jordan. And it's always been sexual abuse scandal at Ohio State. And I haven't really understood what the story was until I watched this documentary. Did you?
Well, I knew it had to do with wrestlers being sexually abused, and I knew that he was an assistant coach there, but I didn't really have a sense of, is it one of those things where there's like 15 assistant coaches like in
a
football
team? Yeah.
And you can like, you just like show up for a couple hours a day and you yell at the wrestlers and you
Stealing
go off
signs.
and do your own thing.
Yeah.
But in fact, he seemed as though it was basically him and this guy Hellickson, who was the head coach. And those seemed to be the two main people. So it's not the kind of thing where he was just a bit player in this. Like, and you know, when you listen to the wrestlers talk about it, I mean, those are the two guys they talk about are the head coach and Jim Jordan, who they called Jimmy. So yeah, I guess I didn't quite have a sense of like how close he was to all this stuff. I mean, his denials always seemed like worth nothing because people who seemed to know more about it than I did presented them as though they meant nothing, and that clearly he did know.
I know for a fact how many conversations that Jimmy's had about Dr. Strauss.
Conversations in the locker room are a lot different than someone coming up to you and saying there was some kind of abuse.
So did you hear it in the locker room?
No.
Clearly what this shows is that he must have known, and whether he's complicit through not saying anything in his own mind, that I don't know, but it's the kind of thing that would take down a lot of politicians, right? And I think
We're used to take down a lot of politicians back in the day.
I think a combination of just brazening it out, having Fox News consider him a hero and support anything that he says. You know, he's also in a leadership position in the House. And plus he doesn't wear a fucking jacket like every other member of the House of Representatives. It's bizarre. And really rubs a lot of people the wrong way.
Hey, he might have to get into a wrestling match at any second.
You never know.
Yeah, gonna throw down.
Laura, what were you going to say?
Oh, I was just going to say, I mean, I think there was something in there that was hinted at that he denied this, but privately he reached out to some of these former wrestlers to try to kind of like, well, maybe it didn't really happen. Or are you sure you want to say that? And trying to really kind of make sure that this didn't continue and that this went away. And I think that right there is just, again, this institutional situation where men in power are really discounting and discrediting what's happening. But, you know, at the same time, I was frustrated with Ohio State because I'm like, look how much Michigan State paid out for the Larry Nassar case. It was like $500 million or something. And what did Ohio State do? Like $60 million?
Even cheap ass New Hampshire is paying more money than Ohio State did.
I got to say, I always have found Jim Jordan to be transactional and odious and just completely unlikable and unnecessarily combative. Who possibly believes that he didn't know? Especially when you hear all these people say the different things that they did. He could have had, like, and I understand the political logic of denying it. And that, like, you never end up having to, like, say you're sorry for it, and you're never going to get locked into a lawsuit saying that you knew and you didn't act. But, like, he could have had a shred of decency by saying, I don't know, I never heard, but I support the victims.
Yeah.
But he can't even do that.
No.
He will not acknowledge that, like, he was close to these people, he cares about them, and that he feels for them. And any, like, morsel of decency that you could come up with. And, like, you know, when that was really driven home in this documentary is at the end where we see one of the former wrestlers who's now a high school wrestling coach. And he's obviously been going through a lot emotionally talking about this, but when he talks about his athletes, his wrestlers, and about, like, what he would do for them and the idea that he could possibly walk away from them when they needed him for something as big as that, like, just broke him down. Because why did Russ, the head coach, all of a sudden talk to everybody and seemed to be in on it and then, like, walked away from it?
Yeah.
Because he probably got a call from Congressman Jim Jordan.
Toby, I know you had thoughts about Coach Hellickson, right?
Well, yeah, and I also, that seemed like the scene that Kevin was describing seemed a little bit like, it's not like I really give a shit whether they're being unfair to the Ohio State guys, but the pressure that guy's under in his program at some high school in Florida is a little bit different than Ohio State's wrestling program. So I think with a lot of these institutional things, you can go in with the best of intentions, and then suddenly you're a part of this much larger machine, and then you just make decisions based on preserving your status in that machine or preserving that machine's status. But I get the fact that he it seems like it's the betrayal of the basic humanity, letting that be overwhelmed by the pressure of sticking up for this huge, institution. Yeah, I think Hellickson, I mean, he's a coward, at the end of the day. When he meets with his wrestlers and they're all telling him what happened, he's like, I'll write a letter to whoever you want me to do. It's like, oh, okay, well, write a letter. Sure. Guess that's good.
A strongly worded letter.
Yeah. People were not being very nice. But, as soon as he walks out and, I think the supposition is that Jim Jordan called him and was just like, dude, do not do this to me. And he backs off and he doesn't do anything. And then there's that meeting with that same referee who was in the shower with Strauss, and the referee confronts him about it. And the guy's like, yeah, we're not doing this, and walks away. And that's the last time they talked. So, again, you see the competing pressures, and there's no real consequences to him for the pressure from the kids, right? Whereas if he supports them, the consequences to him from Ohio State and a very powerful member of the government, that's quite a bit more tangible. Yeah. So he goes that route. And again, he's not selling him out because he's not getting any money, but he's being a coward and not willing to face the pain of stuff that he should have done in the past in order to support the kids who were the actual victims.
Jim Jordan is doing something that's become very trendy since the mid-2010s. He is using his political rhetoric to deny something, which, if you think about it, is very smart because then it gets millions of people on your side. So if you align these guys with being anti-point of view that you have, or I see it happen all the time now with the expression DEI. That's a DEI person, so we have to now discount everything they say. Or this is a person who has something to gain, and this is a person who once tweeted something bad about Donald Trump, so clearly they're out to get me as a politician. The trend now of people coming forward with stories of abuse or people doing the right thing and then being vilified on the political stage, it's just increasing in a way that is so disturbing and upsetting. And it's happening in the most, we see now ex-jurors being politicized and called names and people trying to align them if they didn't vote the way people wanted them to vote. It's really something. Laura, what do you think is in it for these men to participate in a documentary like this?
Well, I was thinking about that at the end of this because it's, number one, I don't remember seeing so many men come forward with these type of stories of sexual abuse in this type of capacity. And, Ohio State University is totally trying to silence them. They're not acknowledging what happened. And this is giving them a chance to actually speak out and shed light on what happened in a way that's very public, that is going to get their story out there in the way that they want to tell it. And I'm hoping it was cathartic for them to be able to go through that process after really being kind of, cast aside and not believed and essentially attacked by this university. Oh, if it was real, you would have fought back, these strong wrestlers. And so they were really just totally invalidated by this Ohio State community. And at one point you had the one guy that was testifying and he was like, OH, and they didn't respond. And he's like, oh, I guess we're not Buckeyes anymore because of speaking out against this. And so I think just given how the systemic denial in this institution was just so strong and so prevalent and so unwavering, this, for me, I felt like good for these guys for speaking up because I don't know how else their story was going to be heard because it wasn't being heard by the people who should have been hearing it all along.
Yeah, and I think by the way, Laura, I think I was always thinking about that sort of thing where you say OH and they're supposed to say IO back at you. And I sort of feel like maybe in that setting after him, testifying in front of the Board of Regents, that might have been the equivalent of saying Marco and waiting for someone to say Polo back. But I think what it shows guys, though, is the importance of victims' voices because, as they said, it's because of the Nassar story that they saw that and realized, hey, that's us. We need to come forward. And it wasn't easy, but that started it. And I'm sure that their story is making it easier for someone else to come forward. And like, it's not one-to-one and it's not easy, but it's these kinds of things that hopefully embolden other people to speak their truth. And then hopefully that's how justice is obtained.
What's up, podcast listeners? It's Tinks, host of the It's Me Tinks podcast. Join me weekly on It's Me Tinks as I dive into topics like relationships, why it's okay to feel lonely, fighting summer comparison, and pop culture's hottest takes. I don't shy away from getting candid about my personal experiences, and I want to share all the advice I have learned with you. I'm even joined by some of my friends like Claudia Oshry, Connor Wood, and Amanda Hirsch each Friday for our new Office Hours episodes. You can listen to It's Me Tinks every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday wherever you listen to podcasts. And don't forget to follow the show so you don't miss an episode.
The new Huggies Snug & Dry are luxuriously soft and ultra dry. How soft are we talking? Unbelievably soft, irresistibly soft. Doesn't your baby deserve a diaper that's oh so gentle on their tushy? Huggies Snug & Dry helps keep them comfy, cozy, and protected. Experience the unexpected softness and up to 100% leak protection. More parents choose the new Huggies Snug & Dry softness versus the leading premium diaper. Huggies, we got you, baby.
Next Level Pet people will do anything for their dogs. That means treating them with next level protection from parasites with NexGard Plus, afoxolaner, moxidectin, and parental chewable tablets. NexGard Plus chews provide one and done monthly protection against fleas, ticks, heartworm disease, roundworms, and hookworms, all in a tasty beef-flavored chew. Use with caution in dogs with a history of seizures or neurologic disorders. Dogs should be tested for existing heartworm infection prior to starting a preventive. Ask your vet about NexGard Plus Chews.
Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile. With the price of just about everything going up, we thought we'd bring our prices down. So to help us, we brought in a reverse auctioneer, which is apparently a thing.
Mint Mobile Unlimited Premium Wireless. How to get 30, 30, bit to get 30, bit to get 20, 20, 20, bit to get 20, 20, bit to get 15, 15, 15, 15, just $15 a month? Sold!
Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month plan equivalent to $15 per month required. New customer offer for first 3 months only. Speed slow after 35 gigabytes if network's busy. Taxes and fees extra. See mintmobile.com.
All right, let's do what we do. Let's let our listeners know, should they check out Surviving Ohio State? It's a documentary on HBO. Laura Bricker, thumbs up or thumbs down for Surviving Ohio State?
Yeah, I'm going to go thumbs up with this. We have consumed a lot of media, both podcast and documentary style, about institutions where there has been sexual abuse and sexual assault by people in positions of authority and power. And this one was really unique because this was a different type of victim that we haven't heard from a lot. These were men. These were men that were wrestlers. And this is something that I felt was very brave. It was a different way to tell the same story that we've heard before. But also, I think anytime we hear one of these stories about some sort of an organization like the Scouts or, gymnastics, anything like this, it kind of gets the word out. It's going to help the next person down the line. And I think having men speak out might help the next one down the line. So it was like an hour and a half. It was a good overview. It's rage inducing. I'm sad because of my own family history with Ohio State to see how this played out, but I'm going to go thumbs up with this.
Toby Ball, thumbs up or thumbs down for Surviving Ohio State?
Yeah, I'm thumbs up too. There's a lot going on in this. I think it's a very good rebuttal to some pretty common and upsetting and deplorable stereotypes that people have about people who are victims of sexual abuse and what they should have done or what I would have done in their place and stuff like that, which, is just complete BS. So there's that aspect of it. There's a similar story that we've seen again in a bunch of other things, which is sort of this idea of institutions covering up malfeasance by people who are part of their institution in order to sort of protect their own reputation, or in this case, also money. And then the final thing is sort of digging at a story that's kind of been out there, but not in as much detail for the most part, or at least that's been available to a large audience, about a person who plays a major, major role in our government, has a lot of power. And I think it sort of puts the details and makes it pretty visceral. what the accusation is. So I think with all those things together, I mean, it's crisp. It's easy to follow. I think it's pretty clear sort of ethically and morally about what's going on. I just think they did a really good job. So yeah, that's a strong thumbs up.
Kevin Flynn.
I'm also going thumbs up on this. It is, as a documentary, it's a bit slow, a little pensive, and it doesn't really break any new news here. No sort of new explosive testimony, but it does provide a larger platform for a story that has kind of faded as the allegations have drifted farther into the past. I think the news coverage is usually driven more by revelation and about people coming forward and making the allegations, and kind of fades when it comes to the difficult work of reform and accountability. I think it does a good job of letting people know that victims like this, it's not about their gender or their age or about who can defend themselves the best. A lot of these victims are victims of opportunity, of a predator who has put him or herself in a position where they have power over them and can take advantage of it. And so for everybody who just said, well, that wouldn't happen to me because I would just sock the guy, you can see that that's not how it works in the real world. And that causes real pain. And we have seen a series of these. I'm thinking of Lucky Boy, which also dealt with male victims of sexual assault, where you would think, oh, that wouldn't happen, or that's not what a victim looks like. I think this is a good conversation starter here, and I would recommend streaming this title.
Yeah, I'm a thumbs up too. I think there needs to be more media about the abusive environment of collegiate sports. These students and young people have no power. They have absolutely no power, even if they're stars in their sport. I remember we listened to the Aaron Hernandez podcast, and Urban Meyer was a real piece of shit. And we watched a documentary in that he appeared in. He's a real piece of shit, basically abusing kids, giving them, some of them, putting a piece of tape down the middle of the hall and saying, you can eat over here with white tablecloths and lobster, and you didn't do well enough, so now you have to clean up after all these guys. It's disgusting. It's a disgusting abuse of power. I think sports culture fucking sucks. And I think it all gets labeled under, well, that's just sports. That's a coaching mentality. That's just a team mentality. It's that because they choose for it to be that. It does not have to be that. You hear about benevolent coaches sometimes and how players respond and team members respond to coaches who sincerely love and care for them, sometimes a lot more than they respond to these sports institutions that abuse them, take them, give them scholarships, as if the scholarship, by the way, means fucking nothing to Ohio State. It means everything to an Ohio State athlete. Ohio State can give out as many scholarships as they want. They have a huge fucking endowment. They have a really rich board of trustees. It means nothing to them. It means nothing. And everything that Ohio State and these other institutions do means everything to these students. So I think there should be more media about stuff like this. I really liked it. So yeah, big thumbs up for me for surviving Ohio State. Now it's time for my favorite part of the podcast, a little something I like to call the Crime of the Week.
Crime of the Week!
They're doubling up at one Long Island high school. Among the 500 students graduating from Plainview Old Bethpage High this year are 30 twins. The Associated Press reports it's a tight group. Many met years earlier in twin groups, and others are in a twins-only group chat. While you think you'd be seeing double over and over again, none of the twins are identical. There are 15 sets of fraternal twins, including some mixed gender pairs. Teachers say you'd never guess any of them shared a womb. This isn't unusual for Plainview Old Bethpage. The classes of 2014 and 2015 each had 10 sets of twins, and the incoming freshman class has 9. Last year, a middle school in Needham, Massachusetts graduated 23 sets of twins. The record goes to an Illinois high school that in 2017 graduated 88 twins and 1 set of triplets. So panel, it's the season of 2-for-1 graduations. What is the perfect gift to give graduating twins? Laura Bricker.
I have to go with double mint gum. It's the only thing that comes to mind. But I also have to say, I think this should be a podcast. Like these communities that have all these twins, what is happening
It's a Dan
there?
Taberski podcast. I know what's happening there. I can solve this for you right now. These are from wealthy communities whose parents can afford to go to fertility clinics.
Yeah.
I'll tell you that not in this case.
No?
Actually, I read the article, and I do not believe any of them are from fertility treatments.
Wow, that's amazing.
Which is another reason why statistically there are, I guess, more twins around, because that does happen from that.
Toby Ball, what is the perfect gift to give graduating twins?
I'm not sure. Did you read that article, that crazy article about the village of twins in Brazil? Like in the middle of there's a city there's this village or town or something in Brazil that was settled by, I think, German people who were fleeing after World War II or something. So there's all these like rumors about like, oh, is this like Nazi experiments or whatever? Because all these like blonde, blue-eyed twins, but it turns out that there's just like this genetic thing that somebody who actually knew what they were talking about looked into it, and they're like, oh no, it's just it happens to be the unique makeup of this town. That being said, what do you get twins? I didn't look at this beforehand, so I'm having to kind of make this up off the top of my head.
Yeah, I'm getting that vibe.
Yeah, you're doing a good job stalling.
Yeah. So, but it's hard for me to both stall while talking and think at the same time. So we might be here for a while. I don't know. It's Thompson Twins compilation.
Very good.
CD or something.
Kevin Flynn, what's the perfect gift for graduating twins?
Oh, well, if they're going to college and getting those student loans, how about matching bankruptcy forms?
I have one.
Yeah.
This high school's in Long Island. I'm very familiar with this part of the world. You know what they're going to give them?
Matching IROCs?
2 Cookie Puss cakes. And if you're from Long Island, you know what the fuck I'm talking about. You're getting double Cookie Pusses. It's or double Fudgy the Whale. That's a whale of a cake for a whale of a twin.
It's Cookie-O-Puss for St. Patrick's Day. Yeah.
Come in the Carvels.
The best. Laura Bricker, if folks want to reach out to you on social media, how can they find you there?
You can find me at Laura Bricker on Instagram and Blue Sky.
What about you, Toby Ball? How can you be found online?
At Toby Ball NH on Blue Sky.
Kevin Flynn, how can you be found?
I'm everywhere at Kevin P. Flynn.
I'm everywhere.
P is for Cookie Puss.
I'm everywhere at Reb Lavoie for crime and Karen Reed stuff. Follow me on Twitter. Everywhere else, you'll just get more of me. Dogs, person stuff. It's Reb Lavoie everywhere. But mostly I encourage you to join our incredible community in our official Crime Writers on Facebook discussion group, the very best group on Facebook because I kick out everybody who misbehaves. Go to Facebook, find our page. There's a link there to join the group. Get episodes early and ad-free and everything else we make at patreon.com/partnersincrimemedia. Our theme song was composed and performed by Tyler Gibbons, and our editor is the terrific Livy Burdett. The EP of this show is Kevin. This show is recorded in Studio C, the closet in our New Hampshire basement, where we are also not buying that Jim Jordan had no idea what Strauss was up to. Also, Jim Jordan, your hair sucks. On behalf of all the crime writers, thanks so much for listening. We will catch you later. By the way, isn't he so good in the studio? He's an angel when he comes in.
Our little
here.
dog is here.
He's an angel when he comes in here.
I was
he
like,
comes
Jim
up
Jordan. Jesus,
no, when I'm recording by
about?
myself in here, he comes in and like sits on the bench next to me. He's so good. He's so quiet when he's in here.
Our cat, the problem with the cat was there's a, so I'm in Jake's room and there's a bird that has a nest right outside his window. So the cat was seeing this bird going back and forth from the nest and was absolutely going out of his mind. So I had to put him
cat.
out. Yeah.
Partners in Crime Media.
This episode is brought to you by Huggies Little Movers. It's fun having a baby that loves to move, but it can be challenging to find a diaper that can keep up with them. Huggies Little Movers is designed to move with your baby. With either the double grip strips or the new HugFit 360-degree waistband, you can be confident relying on Huggies Little Movers for your active little ones. Huggies Little Movers, made with double grip strips or the new HugFit 360-degree waistband, so your little double can keep moving like you. Huggies, we got you, baby.